ladies and gentlemen, we can finally start off a video without talking about Juan Soto, but you can bet your buns we'll talk about him by the end of the video. In the meantime, let's talk about Frankie Montas signing with the Mets and Matthew Boyd going to the Cubs. Now, for Frankie Montas, it's a 2-year deal, $34 million to a $17 million AAV, has an opt-out after 2025. Now, when it comes to Frankie Montas, I could see a lot of people thinking this is not a great signing because when you look at these numbers, they do not look all that great. 30 starts between the Reds and the Brewers this year. He got traded at the trade deadline to the Brewers. ERA at a 4.84, FIP at a 4.71. Now, you got to remember with Montas, he missed pretty much all of 2023, had to get shoulder surgery, so he was really just working his way back this year. There was definitely a lot of rust. He did show some good things along the way, but he got hammered along the way as well. Now, I think this has potential to be a pretty good signing because the Mets made a similar signing last offseason with Luis Severino. You got to remember with Severino, he had so many injury-plagued years with the Yankees, and the Mets, they helped him turn in his best season since 2018. 31 starts, ERA at a 3.91, FIP at a 4.21. Severino is definitely a great example of a guy they brought in, they made a couple of adjustments, and they got a good season out of him. Taking a look at Severino, now, when it came to the sinker, back in 2023, he was only using it 3% of the time, but they said to Severino, hey, we want to up the usage of this to right around 25%, and he had some great results, right? Taking a look at Montas this past year. Now, with the fastball, he led the way right around 33% of the time, had a -5 run value, but the sinker had a 7 run value. I would bet the Mets, they're going to do a similar thing here. I think they're going to have Montas throw more of that sinker. I think they're going to up the usage of it, pair that split finger a little bit. I think you're going to see a pretty good season out of Montas if everything goes accordingly because they just did it with Severino, made a couple of adjustments. I think they could do the same thing with Montas. Now, when I think of Severino in the past, this was a power pitcher, had pretty good stuff, but they brought him in and said, let's be more of a pitcher instead of a power pitcher. Let's get some more ground balls. I think with Montas, very similar profile, power pitcher when he was with the Oakland A's. I think they do the same thing here, and they try to get a better season out of him. Now, when it comes to the Mets rotation, Montas is projected to be the number 2 guy as of right now, but I see him being more of a 3 in this rotation. I don't think the Mets are going to stop there. I do think they add someone else. I could see them going after someone like Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, or I could see a scenario where, they have Kadai Senga be the ace of this staff, be the opening day guy, and maybe try to bring someone like Sean Manaea back. I definitely think that's a possibility, but I don't think the Mets are going to stop at this point. They need to add more pitching. Sure, they are focusing on Juan Soto, but I think they need to add at least one more guy to this rotation. And we've got a report from Joel Sherman of the New York Post saying that the Mets are now showing interest in Walker Buehler, along with the Braves, the Yankees, and the A's, for crying out loud. Now, I could see this being right up David Stern's alley, right? You just brought in Frankie Montas, who's still working his way back, right? Walker Buehler, he missed a lot of time over the last couple of years because he got Tommy John. He came back this year, did help the Dodgers win a World Series, but the regular season, there was definitely some rust there. 16 starts, ERA, FIP in the 5. So yeah, Walker Buehler, sure, looked a little better in the postseason, but this guy needs to get back on track for a full regular season. I could see the Mets looking to make a move for Walker Buehler. Moving on to Matthew Boyd, he signed a 2-year deal for $29 million with up to $1 million in incentives with the Cubs. No opt-outs in this deal. Now, it's a bit of a different case from Frankie Montas because Boyd missed a lot of time recently because he just came back from Tommy John. Very small sample size this year with the Guardians, but did put up some pretty good numbers. ERA to 2.72, FIP at a 3.29, over 10 strikeouts per nine, pitched pretty well in the postseason. Now, when you take a look at the Cubs rotation, I do think it's a solid-looking rotation. Imanaga was great this past year. In his first year in the major leagues, Justin Steele did miss some time this year, but overall was pretty solid. He's been pretty solid for the last couple of years now. Jamison Tyone made a lot of improvements this year. So Matthew Boyd being the number 4 in this rotation, that's pretty solid if you ask me, especially if he stays healthy. I think there's a lot of floor here. I do wonder about the ceiling, but overall, a very solid looking rotation. Now, I think this also tells us that the Cubs are probably going to be hanging around in that mid-market. We actually had Bob Nightingale not too long ago talk about this, saying that they're not negotiating with any of the marquee free agents, and instead they're focusing on the mid-market players. Now, when you take a look at the Cubs luxury tax payroll, just above $200 million right now, the first threshold is at $241 million, and this is with Matthew Boyd already included on the payroll. So the Cubs have some flexibility here. But when you take a look at the Cubs, there's not really a whole lot of flexibility. They got guys pretty locked down into these positions right now. When you look at the Cubs lineup, there's not a lot of flexibility here. You got guys pretty locked in to these positions, right? Especially Peter Crow-Armstrong, their top prospect. He's looking for some playing time here. Could be a future star for the Cubs, so I don't see them moving him out of center field, right? You got Ian Happ out in left. You got Swanson, your long-term shortstop. Sai Suzuki, where do you put him? You traded for Michael Busch last offseason. He can move around a little bit. I could see him playing some second base this year if Nico Hoerner takes a little bit of time to come back. But then when Hoerner comes back, you got him locked in to second base. You got a lot of guys locked down right now. Now, the one guy that's popped up on the trade block is Cody Bellinger. But the problem with Bellinger, he's got a lot of money owed to him. The numbers weren't great this past year. There have been reports the Cubs are looking to unload Cody Bellinger and his contract. I don't see teams wanting to take him. So there's not really much you can do here when it comes to adding guys. They just traded for Isaac Paredes at the deadline. So not a lot of flexibility here. The rotation, I don't see them adding more to this at this point. I could see them going after something for the bullpen. Maybe they go after someone like a Tanner Scott, Jeff Hoffman. I could see something like that. I do think they need to add to this bullpen even after adding Eli Morgan. But you're looking at Eli Morgan, more of a middle reliever, maybe a setup guy. I could see them maybe adding something to go alongside the back end of the bullpen. I think Tanner Scott would be a great fit in this bullpen. I think you could use a high leverage lefty here. But we'll just have to wait and see what else the Cubs do this offseason. And I want to add on one more thing about these signings because I'm seeing a lot of people out there saying they're overpays. Now, I could see the argument with Frankie Montas because these numbers don't look like a $17 million AAV. You got to remember, one win above replacement is worth $8 million. Montas finished with a 1.4. That's worth a little under $12 million. But I'm looking at it from the Mets' point of view. I think that they can get him back on track. They can get the numbers back up a little bit, and they can end up getting some good value. And he has the opt-out. So if he has a good year, he can just go out into free agency next year. So I could see this as a good move for the Mets. I can see the point of view from their end. Now, for Matthew Boyd, I do think this is a good deal. AAV of $14.5 million. He was on pace this year to finish with a 3 wins above replacement if he made 24 starts. These are good numbers over 8 starts. So if he's fully healthy next year, and with the Cubs, they've invested a lot into the pitching department over the last few years. I think Boyd could end up having a very good season, and he could definitely be more valuable than the $14.5 million. So in the end, I think this could be a very good signing for the Cubs. What I'm thinking with these two signings, though, Montas going to the Mets and Boyd going to the Cubs, is that this mid-tier starting pitching market is starting to move. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw guys like Sean Manaea, Nathan Eovaldi, Luis Severino, Nick Pivetta sign maybe even this week or early in the winter meetings. I think you're going to have to wait a little bit for Corbin Burnes to come off the board. I think teams are going to wait for Juan Soto to come off the board because Burnes, he's going to cost a lot of money. Even someone like Max Fried, he's probably going to cost somewhere in the $24 to $26 million range per year. So, even Jack Flaherty, he's going to be a little pricey. So I could see teams trying to get ahead here, add some of these mid-market guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan Eovaldi signs somewhere this week, try to go to a postseason contender. I could see the Braves maybe looking to add him. We'll see here, but I do think we're starting to see this mid-tier market start to heat up. Moving on to the Astros, and according to Ken Rosenthal, they're continuing to try to bring back Alex Bregman, but they got some backup plans. They're staying in touch with Willy Adames, and they've expressed interest in Jorge Polanco. Now, when it comes to the Astros, we all know the deal. They got a big hole at third base right now because Alex Bregman is a free agent. Now, I could see them trying to bring him back. He's been with the Astros his entire career, won a couple of World Series there. He's been one of the more solid players in the game for years now. Alex Bregman, I think, is going to continue to be a solid player moving forward. The only thing that holds me back is, will the Astros pony up the money that it's going to take to get him, especially with him being on the open market? They usually don't dabble in these big contracts. They have been spending a little bit more over the last couple of years, Josh Hader, Jose Abreu, but will they go the extra mile to bring back Alex Bregman? Would Bregman maybe take a hometown discount? We'll just have to wait and see on that, but I still think Bregman fits well at Minute Maid Park. Sure, the batted ball metrics were a bit down, but when it comes to his pull kind of swing, I think that fits well at Minute Maid Park. He's still a very disciplined hitter, doesn't really strike out all that much. He plays good defense at third base. I still think the Astros are very much in a competitive window, so I could see Bregman Bregman, coming back, say in a 5 or 6 year deal, whatever it may be. Now, the question is, the money. Now, when it comes to baseball trade values, they're projecting for 6 years, a $153 million deal, right around $25 million per season. Now, if they don't pony up the money for Alex Bregman, I don't see them bringing in Willy Adames. Willy Adames, a very solid free agent this year, had his downs defensively this year, but he is willing to move to another position like second or third base. Third base, probably more likely. Willy Adames is going to get himself a very good contract this offseason. He had a good year this year. He hit .251 with a .331 on base, a .462 on the slugging, a .119 WRC plus, 32 homers, a 4.8 F4 overall. The defense was a little down at shortstop this year, but he is willing to move over to third base. So I could see, with the good track record he has defensively, I think he would be fine at third base. Has a good arm, has some pretty good range as well. So I think he would be a good fit at third. But if they're not going to pay Alex Bregman, I don't see them paying Willy Adames. You got to remember with Adames, he is 29 years old. He is in the middle of his prime right now. I think he's going to end up getting more money than Bregman. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a longer deal than Alex Bregman. Bregman's going to be turning 31 soon, and Willy Adames is 29 years old. So I could see Adames maybe getting even a 7-year deal. We'll just have to wait and see. But baseball trade values, they're projecting just under $30 million per year for him. I think people are underestimating how much money this guy is going to get. That's for a 6-year deal. If he ends up getting a 7-year deal, you're looking at around $28 million per year, just under $200. So I definitely think it's possible Adames, if he gets a 7-year deal, he could go over the $200 million mark. So again, if they don't bring back Bregman, I definitely don't see them going after Willy Adames. I could see someone like Jorge Polanco. He's more played, second base. He has played a little bit of third base a couple of years ago. So yeah, Polanco, he's been having a tough time with the injuries over the last couple of years. Didn't do very well with the Mariners this year. But I could see him being a fallback option. I would also look at someone like Yohan Moncada possibly. I definitely think, this is a guy where he's only 29 years old. This guy was a top prospect not too long ago. I could see them giving him a chance, maybe trying to tap into some upside there. I could also see maybe them going on the trade block and maybe taking a look at someone like Nolan Arenado. I think his bat would also fit well. You're seeing the numbers start to decline a little bit with Arenado, but like Bregman, I think his pull bat would fit very well at Minute Maid Park. So we'll have to keep our eyes on the third base situation with the Astros. And of course, we got to wrap this up with some Juan Soto news. And according to Andy Martino today, he said, it's no secret that the Yanks and Mets are all in on Soto, as one league source reiterates, and that there is a widespread belief among bidders that Toronto will come in with the highest offer. He goes on to say here, there's also widespread skepticism that Soto would go to the Blue Jays, but a source pushed back on that, saying that if a team is involved in the final bidding, Soto is willing to play there. We also got something from Jon Heyman today on Foul Territory. He was asked whether or not Soto would leave money on the table to go to another team, and he went on to say it's possible, but not likely. Now, when it comes to the Blue Jays, let me touch on that really quick. Listen, I think the Blue Jays will absolutely throw down a ton of money. I would not be surprised at all to see them have the highest bid. I just don't see Juan Soto going there. Listen, the situation in Toronto is not looking all that bright. Vlad Jr. is not signed up to an extension. I see a lot of people out there say, well, if Soto goes there, of course Vlad's going to sign up. Listen, I think Juan Soto would like to go somewhere knowing what the situation is going to be like for years to come. I mean, I'm just saying, that's how I would feel, at least. And then when you look at the farm system with Toronto, it's looking a little murky. They're ranked near the bottom right now when it comes to the farm system rankings. They got to beef that back up a little bit. I don't know. Sure, yeah, I could see them offering a lot of money, but I just don't think the situation is great, at least when you compare it to teams like the Red Sox, like the Mets, like the Yankees, where the Red Sox and the Mets, they built their farm systems back up. They got talent at the major league level that they're ready to add to. The Yankees, obviously, he just got to a World Series with them. I think those are better situations overall. I absolutely could see Soto going to the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox, even if it was a little less money than, say, what the Blue Jays offer. I definitely think that can happen. We'll just have to wait and see. Jon Heyman also told us that they are through the second round of bidding, and it's starting to get to a head now, and he was expecting that he's probably going to be signed, either before or during the winter meetings. So I do think we're going to see Soto sign rather soon. But everyone, those are my thoughts in this video today. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of all the stories we talked about here today? What do you think about Soto? What do you think about the Cubs, the Mets signing Matthew Boyd, Frankie Montas? What do you think of the Astros? Let me know down below in the comments. But everyone, that's all I got for this video. If you're kind of on the way out, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.